Hello and welcome back to the Cfctalk podcast. It's been a while. I know I haven't been uploading regularly, but I'll try my best to cover as much as I can this episode and try and do at least an episode a week from here on. I just want to quickly give a shout out to everyone who's been supporting our social media pages because on there we've been doing regular podcast, not regular podcast, but actually regular reels, as well as updates on all of the latest news for Chelsea in terms of the transfers that have happened so far, the transfer news coming up for the next few weeks until the window closes January, and then obviously the summer window as well alongside that. And I think the last time I did an episode, it was about Enzo Fernandez, Santos, Fofana, Davitra Fofana, and the World Cup review kind of situation. But we've come a long way from there. Chelsea have been in a bit of a turmoil, if you want to call it, losing out on a few games that we shouldn't have lost, and then the atrocious 3 games or 2 games against Manchester City back to back. But since the World Cup has ended, it's been kind of a tough period for Chelsea in terms of trying to get back in form, trying to get something out of it by the end of it. I mean, we lost to Aston Villa after the World Cup, and then we won against Bournemouth, drew against Forest, lost to City in the league, and then lost to City in the FA Cup, and then lost to Fulham in the league, and won against Crystal Palace, but then again drew against Liverpool. So a lot of performances to judge this team based off, as well as the players that have already come in this window and what the issues with those players are, because honestly there have been some FFP, actually I keep saying FPP thinking that's something else, but FFP violations that Chelsea seem like or it's been reported like Chelsea are kind of breaking at the moment, which I just feel like it's a lot of news that's not going to end up being true by the end of this, because of the fact that we're a club that's debt free. We're basically, because when we sold Chelsea, or when Roman Abramovich sold Chelsea, it was debt free. So coming into this, Chelsea should be able to spend as much as they want. At the same time, I think FFP, what it does is just slows down the amount of spending you can have each season. But I think with Bowley and the new technical team that we've got there, who are calculating the transfers and everything, I think they've got it covered. They know what they're doing in terms of whether they've been breaching FFP so far or not, and I don't think they need to worry about that stuff at all. But diving straight into the performances, I think let's speak about Liverpool, which being the latest performance that Chelsea have had. And I think against against Liverpool, who obviously they've got the talent. We can't lie about that. They've got the talent, but at the same time, it's a team who've been struggling just like Chelsea. They're ninth on the table. They're 10th, just like us, level on points, and they've had a lot of struggling games as well, just like Chelsea, and that's what we've seen as well because of their injuries. So it's been this exactly same kind of thing for Chelsea as well at the same time. It was nice to see that we were playing with so much width, using up Hakim Ziyech when he was on the pitch, and then when Mudryk came on as well, which is something that we'll discuss more down the line. But we weren't just able to finish our chances, because realistically yesterday we did create a lot of chances, which was very nice to see, because a lot of the complaints that we've been hearing from fans and players is that there's not a lot of chances for our forwards to try and attack on and try and capitalize on it, which is exactly what I think we were doing. Yes, we're going to talk about Mason Mount, and that's just, I know this is going to be something that I'm going to have to be very careful with when I speak about Mason Mount, because a lot of people tend to listen carefully on what's being said about Mount and then just go off because of one specific thing that you say or one specific opinion that you might have. And I think a lot of fans like to defend Mason Mount, even though he's not been having those great performances, even though he's not been playing as well as he should be, even though there's players at Chelsea who might start ahead of Mount at the moment based off of recent performances, irrespective of what he's achieved at Chelsea, what he's achieved at the Chelsea Academy, what he's achieved so far in his football career at Chelsea or wherever he's been throughout. I think when we came on the podcast, when we come on the podcast or we go on social media and we speak about Kai Havertz, we're very clear in terms of saying, well, Kai Havertz is not being consistent. We need to try out Fofana. We need to try out Aubameyang in that position. We need to try out João Felix. So now he's coming as well. But when it comes to Mason Mount, I feel like fans are a bit edgy, and some fans just can't take any criticism about Mount, and they think suddenly any criticism being made about Mount clearly is just fans wanting Mount to not start, Mount not to be in this team or be sold somewhere else, which is not the case at all. We all know what his abilities are in terms of, we've seen it in the last few seasons in the Champions League winning season as well as the last season. There's a reason why Tuchel picked him regularly. There's a reason why Lampard picked him regularly. There's a reason why Graham Potter's picking him regularly. It's just that he's been playing so many games over the last few years. He just hasn't had a lot of kind of time to relax or take some time off and then come back, which is because he's been playing regularly for Chelsea. He's been playing regularly for England as well. And since the World Cup came in as well during November, he hasn't had a lot of time off the pitch to kind of reflect on his performances. And I've said this time and time again, there's a lot of players in this team who just seem like they're frustrated with the fact that they've had to play for so long, so regularly, that they just haven't had the time to sit back, reflect on whatever's happened over the last few months and come back to it, which is one more thing. And with Mason Mount, it's just that he needs to be off the pitch for a few games, maybe improve himself on the training field before he comes back on the pitch. Not saying that he should be sold or anything, but just give him a bench position for a few games, try out a few other combinations, give it a few games of rest, and bring him back on when the coach thinks he deserves to come on. Because realistically, if I want to pick out players who generally didn't play that well against Liverpool, it would have to be Mason Mount. Like, I think a lot of the passes that he was making in the final third weren't the passes that you would expect him to make, because he's someone who's been really good in terms of creating those chances. There were so many times that he would just get dispossessed off the ball and he would just stand there and he wouldn't try and steal the ball back, which was another kind of issue with Mason Mount as well. Which is exactly why I think he should be benched for a few games at least for now, before we can decide what we want to do with it. Because I feel like fans are being a bit too reactionary when they say, "Oh, we need to sell Mason Mount or he doesn't deserve a contract," which was reported to be about what £300,000 a week. But at the same time, we can clearly see that Bowley's got a plan in terms of restructuring the fee structure. Is exactly what he's doing. And we saw that with Mudryk. I think he's on about 95, 97K a week with a lot of incentives. And that's what Chelsea are doing at the moment. They're giving players these low salaries. I wouldn't say low because they're still quite hefty salaries, but at the same time, there's a lot of emphasis on actually the incentives, scoring 20 goals a season, 15 assists a season, so on and so forth, clean sheets. And that way it just gives Chelsea this kind of power over the player itself, saying, well, I'm not going to give you a new contract if you're not even getting me 15 goals a season. But if you get me 15 goals a season and 2 assists or 5 assists, whatever, you're going to get another 15 million or 10 million over the span of the next 3-4 years of your contract or whatever it is. Which is exactly, I think, why Chelsea are delaying this contract for Mason Mount, because they want to have enough people in the club where they are within the same salary range, and then also be like, well, look, everyone else is now in this salary range. And I believe Mason Mount being paid 75K a week, which I must say is quite a lot of money, is still not enough for someone like Mason Mount, who's been at the club for so long, who's done so much. And if Mudryk's getting about 95K, I think his contract would probably be roughly around the same, about 100,000. And also because he's a youngster, we need him for the next 10, 15 years at Chelsea. So why risk it and let him go? Someone like Mason Mount is 24, man. He's going to go to Arsenal. He's going to go to West Ham. He's going to go anywhere around the world, and he's going to be a starting midfielder. That is obvious. Like, he is one of the talents of football right now. There's a reason why his market value is about 75-80 million pounds right now, instead of it just being something else. But it's just that fans just need to chill out with Mason Mount. Like, you can't just keep on going after him. Yes, he's not been performing well, but making compilations of his and sharing all those things are just not like something you would do in terms. But going back to the match, with not just with Mason Mount, but the rest of the team as well. I think overall, because I will say I was very happy with the performance, the way we were just kind of stealing the ball, high pressing, pushing Liverpool back into their own kind of half, into their own box at times, creating those goal scoring opportunities from those situations when we got the ball, going long, in terms of Ziyech having those shots as well. But I just feel like it might have been because of the lack of the quality Liverpool had in their midfield. And that goes for Chelsea as well, which I think both teams in general are really struggling in terms of their midfields. And once you face a team who hasn't been in as good in midfield as Chelsea has, you kind of have a very fair game between the two teams, where neither of them are able to keep the ball for long, because Liverpool were doing the same thing as well. They were also dispossessing Chelsea quite easily, but so were Chelsea. And that's what happens when you don't have a midfield, and it kind of just goes from defense to attack really quickly, or the transition between defense and attack happens quite quickly. Which is exactly what we saw. We saw that left-hand side being used quite a lot in terms of Cucurella, Badiashile. Also, shout out to him for his performance, man. What a great performance by him alongside Silva. You can't. Chelsea's defense is, I think, sorted with Koulibaly, Badiashile, Silva, Chalobah, and all of these guys in there. But the left-hand side, Cucurella was quite influential in terms of moving the ball up the pitch. Ziyech as well, the amount of runs he made, alongside Gallagher, who was kind of playing in behind of Havertz with Mount. It was just a great Chelsea team to see happen, because I must say, at the same time, Chelsea did seem like they were going to a back five with Cucurella moving into a different position, and Lewis Hall playing as a wing back as well at times, until Azpilicueta came on, and we saw a bit of a different formation. But it's just what Potter does. It's just what Potter does with different formations, and just even during the match. I mean, 15 minutes in, I think we already had our first change of formation, playing three at the back. Lewis Hall was going in, Ziyech was moving forward, and that's exactly what you kind of expect from Graham Potter in terms of changing formations on the go. And with Liverpool playing with Bajcetic, was one that they were trying to have that defensive player who can just stay back, just help out with Konate and Gomez in defense. And it was working at times. He was dispossessing Chelsea quite a lot, frustrating a few of the players. But I think overall, in terms of midfield, we were just a bit better. Maybe Jorginho was a bit better than Bajcetic, which is why we were able to kind of clear the ball out way better than Liverpool were able to at times, which was nice to see as well. As for Azpilicueta, what a legend for making 500 appearances. I mean, I know. There's talks about him not being at the club by the end of this season, or next season, and this and that, and whether he should be given another contract or not, and all that news that we hear every time. But I think he's a legend at Chelsea, and irrespective of what happens now, he's going to retire from this club or leave this club a hero. And I think people are just, again, I've said this before and I'll say this again, we're so used to seeing the ability Reece James has, that when we don't have Reece James, any other right back in the world is going to seem like a second body double, or is not going to seem up to mark, because Aspie, with the age that he's on, comes on and he performs so well alongside Silva. And I think when you've got someone like Badiashile, Chalobah, and these young defenders alongside Silva and Azpilicueta, they kind of learn a lot from them, and that's what we've seen so far. Cucurella as well. I can't take away from his incredible performance as well. I think this was one of his best performances in a Chelsea shirt. We've not been able to see the Cucurella that was there at Brighton, but him coming over and doing these kind of, being in these kind of situations, you can tell that he's got the ability to do it. It's just that he just hasn't found his rhythm at Chelsea, but slowly and surely he's finding it, one by one, alongside his players. But the substitutions made by Graham Potter, Mudryk, I think incredible. I think I said this before, and I said this on Twitter as well. And I said, maybe we're going. Is it because we're rushing into it? Maybe is it because we're not able to get Enzo Fernandez for the range that we were kind of hoping for? Is it because of that? Is why we're targeting Mudryk? Yes, they kind of play similar positions. Yes, they might be able to play in different positions, but I feel like what we saw from Mudryk yesterday was incredible. And it's exactly what we need in attack. The pace that we were lacking with Ziyech, with Pulisic, with Mount, Havertz, Gallagher, Mudryk brings that in. When until Mudryk had come on, Milner was having a great game in terms of coming forward and attacking. And suddenly when Mudryk comes on, Kanate and Milner can't lose out on their positions, and they were held back, which was great to see, which freed up Ziyech on that left-hand side and the ability to just pass the ball to Havertz. Aubameyang was there as well to help out. And I think he's quite good, and that dribble when he shot to the side netting was great to see as well, I must add, because that one was great to see after, and it was one of those Hazard-esque moments, and I kind of thought to myself, well, I might be wrong in terms of whether or not Chelsea have spent way too much on him, and whether he deserves to be £100 million signing or not. But clearly, he's shown it so far in 15 minutes against Liverpool, and I hope he does. He does, man. A lot of attackers have come in, a lot of high-profile players have come in, young talents have come in and have failed to get off the mark at Chelsea, and I really do hope he's not one of those, and he does come in and get off the mark straight away, shows Chelsea and shows the rest of the attackers, like, well, this is the level I was at, this is the level I am at, and now this is where everyone has to be. Because when you have one or two of those attackers who are confident, who are able to do these things, you kind of have a good influence on the others as well. And with Ziyech coming to form, I must add on, it's great to see that, because I've not jumped on the sell Ziyech and Pulisic bandwagon yet, because I said this at the start of the season. I said this season might be a deciding season for them. And Ziyech, if he continues to play the way that he was playing against Liverpool, I feel like he's gonna get a lot of the regular starts, with Pulisic being injured as well at the moment. I do see Mudryk, Ziyech, and Havertz starting quite a lot this season. If João Felix comes in, that might be reduced in terms of Ziyech or Mudryk, but I just do feel like by the end of this, we might change our opinion on Ziyech and say, well, this is someone we want to keep at the club, maybe. This is someone who's got the experience in attack and who can help out Mudryk and Havertz. Because when you've got someone like Mudryk and the pace that he's got, and then you've got someone like Ziyech who can ping a ball across from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, that's exactly what you need with that extra amount of pace that Mudryk has. He just goes in behind your defense in those offside traps that you want to kind of beat of the opposition. And that's exactly what Chelsea should be able to do against teams like Fulham, West Ham, or teams who actually sit deep, and you need those attacking players to get in behind the defense or try and find those small spaces between those defenders to try and create something. Because when you've got a high line of defense, it's quite easy to just get in behind it. But when you've got a low block defense, it's quite hard, because you've not only got the four defenders, you've also got the midfielders helping out as well, especially the defensive ones as well. But Chelsea, in this international break, I feel like there's going to be a lot of drama with Chelsea. And the reason I say that is because there's going to be a lot of transfers and rumors that are going to be happening with Chelsea. And it's something that they're kind of looking for to happen as well, because we've just gotten Mudryk. We've just gotten Maduke. I'm sorry if I mess up these pronunciations, by the way, but Maduke as well. We've just brought on Fofana. We've brought on Felix. Obviously, he's on a red card, and he only returns up after the West Ham games or West Ham game or something. We've already got Badiashile, and we're already targeting, players like Enzo Fernandez. McAllister was one of them. There wasn't a heavy kind of target at times, but one of the main ones that's happening right now, Moses Caicedo. I'm going to butcher all of these names, by the way, but Caicedo, another central midfielder, one from Brighton. And I just feel like, I hope Graham Potter realizes that he can't just buy out the Brighton team and fix Chelsea. Yes, Cucurella, good addition. Moises, he's been good as well for Brighton. I can't shy away from saying that he's been quite an influential player for Brighton, and there's a reason why his market value has increased so much from what it was a few months ago or a few years ago. And he's the kind of player that you need when you've not got Kante, when you've not got Jorginho or Kovacic in the team to play and get you out of those situations. And yes, his contracts I think his contract runs out up until 2025 for Brighton, if I'm not wrong. So whatever it is, they will ask for quite a big price, and knowing that it's Graham Potter as well trying to get this sorted, and obviously him being a 21-year-old, it's exactly what you know. Uh, what Chelsea this is a typical Chelsea target, but obviously Brighton are not going to make it easy for him. The number of tackles and interceptions he does per game is exactly what I wanted to talk about here, because he's gotten like an average of I think he does an average of, I think, 2 tackles or three interceptions a game. And I know not a lot of people want to go on these kind of stat analysis, and they'd rather see the player itself perform the way. But he's just someone that Chelsea need right now in terms of midfield, because the transfer strategies that we've seen so far, it's been very defense prominent. It's been very attacking prominent. We were seeing, Mudryk come in, Fofana come in, Badiashile come in for defense, but there's not been a lot of talk about midfield, where clearly most of Chelsea's underlying issues are actually. And that's because, yes, maybe there aren't a lot of midfielders available for Chelsea to get, but at the same time they don't want to overspend, because they know they have someone like Declan Rice as one of their targets, who's obviously one of the key targets of Arsenal. And that's the issue with Chelsea, that some of the players that we've been waiting for so long for, just because their value has been so high, especially someone like Declan Rice, who's been on the radar for years now. It just feels like it's a never-ending kind of story. And now that you've got teams like Arsenal who are doing really well in their own kind of respect of being 6-7 points off Man City off the top, and the signings that they've made as well, and the project that Arteta's building, a lot of these players who are looking at Chelsea and they're going, well, why should I join a club that's just starting a project, whereas I could join an already established project at Arsenal, just improve their squad and win the Premier League. And at the end of the day, yes, Declan Rice has been kind of hinting towards Chelsea. The relations he has with a few of the Chelsea players, and especially Mason Mount, is something that's going to come in key. But I just feel like this is something Arsenal are hyping up at the moment. And I think it might even be just something West Ham are trying to do to try and get Chelsea to make a bigger offer, and try and get Chelsea to kind of act on their offer, because considering the amount that we've spent, 500 million almost this summer, this summer and winter window. Come next summer, we might even go for Enzo Fernandez, and we have to wait for Declan Rice for another year or another 6 months, which is maybe something West Ham don't want. Maybe they want to try and see if Arsenal can come and nab him for the price that Chelsea are offering, or use Arsenal to kind of get Chelsea to bid higher. And that's just how a lot of the times it actually works, because a lot of these teams are just trying to raise the price as much as they can, and that's exactly what I think they would try and do. West Ham would do. And in terms of Declan Rice, I feel like for him, it's very clear that he wants to join Chelsea, and he said that very clearly in a lot of interviews. You can see that from the way he kind of posts, and he kind of interacts with a lot of Chelsea fans, if you want to say that. Which is another interesting one. And I feel like we need Declan Rice. And I said this a year back almost, when we were kind of looking for Declan Rice last year, I think, if I'm not wrong, when Kante we were kind of talking about how injury prone Kante is. And I said, maybe we don't need him right now because we've already got Kante. But now I've realized that Kante isn't part of this squad. Yes, he's there on the books and stuff, but he's just someone who hasn't been able to come up. Like he's missed 30 games already this season. Considering this was a World Cup kind of year where we had this whole November to December kind of period, or this 3-4 weeks extra break, where a lot of the players were expected to recover from their injuries. It just hasn't happened, whether it's the medic team at Chelsea, which is struggling to do it, whether it's some other issue that's been coming up in terms of Kante, or any of the players that are actually in general, like, having issues. I mean, Reece James comes on, gets injured again. Same with Chilwell as well. And now Pulisic's added to that list, and a lot more players that I can't even kind of remember from the amount of injuries that we've had. But as I was saying, going back to the Ziyech thing, he's been doing really well for Chelsea, but the news right now is that Everton are kind of interested in him, who are not having a great season. And I must say, I do really feel for Frank. I mean, he's someone who's, you can see he wants to be a coach very badly, and it's just Frank. It's a very Frank Lampard thing to give it everything he's got in everything that he does. He did it as a player at Chelsea. He did it as a player anywhere around the world. He did it at Chelsea when he was a manager. He was giving everything until the end. And now he's doing the same at Everton. Considering the squad that they've got, I feel like they might be underperforming at the times. And I feel like maybe coaching isn't for him. I don't want to get this wrong, because I know Twitter's going to come after me for saying some of these things, but I just feel like maybe he needs time off from this, as well as he needs time off from the Premier League. I think go try it in Germany, in maybe other leagues, in maybe Scotland, or somewhere else. But I just feel like, or in the lower divisions of England. But I just feel like he needs a lot more experience before he can come up to the Premier League. And he comes into this Everton team who are struggling before, who can't make a lot of these changes that they want to make in the squad because of transfer issues and whatnot. And I just feel like he's stuck in this loop of unable to kind of build his own squad at Everton, which is why he's been struggling so much. But Roma being interested in Ziyech, Everton being interested in Ziyech is something that I feel like it would just be loan deals. And I think Mourinho might get the best use out of him at Roma. And it'll be a league where the tempo isn't as much as what it is in the Premier League, which is something that, I think, which is why Jose Mourinho is so much interested in him, and he wants to kind of want Ziyech on a loan in first, and then hopefully a buyout at the end of it. But I feel like Ziyech could do well for Chelsea when you've got players like Mudryk in support. Kai Havertz hopefully gets back on form. I mean, he almost scored against Liverpool as well. Sad that that goal wasn't allowed. Fair enough, I get it, because we're using VAR and everything, and it just is quite frustrating when you go 1-0 up in the first 2 minutes, and then there's nothing else to kind of see throughout the game happen from Chelsea in terms of scoring a few chances, or at least a 1-1 or a 2-2 draw, or a goal-full draw, if you want to say that. But 2 weeks off, or week and a half off from football, is going to be good for a lot of these players. And whether or not a lot of these players get called on their international team or their national teams is going to be a good question as well. But I feel like if a lot of these national managers are going to call up players who are youngsters, give them a bit of a go, because there's still a long time from qualifications for the World Cup, a long time since the World Cup comes in again, and these national tournaments comes in again. But I just feel like someone like Mason Mount should not be given the England squad this time. And I'm not saying it based off his performance. I'm just saying he just needs time off. And this is the perfect time for him to kind of sit back for the next 2 weeks and just come back a better player in this team. And just for that Fulham game that we play as well, because that's something that's going to be interesting after a loss to Fulham just over 2 weeks back. I think 1 week back from the day we're recording this is another interesting topic, because that loss was horrific after going 1-0 down and then losing out Felix in the 58th minute, and then conceding in the 75th, 70th minute, something like that. But playing Fulham right after the international break on the 3rd of Feb, and then we've got the Champions League kicking off as well in the week after that against Dortmund. And I feel like Chelsea might be able to do well in the Champions League. And the reason I say that is because I feel like it's because we've got Dortmund now, and after that, I think we go into another draw, which means that we could either get PSG or Bayern. We could get Milan if they go through. Bruges and Benfica both are open for Chelsea. Frankfurt are open. Napoli would be open. Inter Milan, Porto would be open as well, if I'm not wrong. Just trying to think of clubs that are open for Chelsea. Milan won't be open, actually. Milan would be not open. Tottenham would not be open. Real Madrid would be open. So quite a few tough teams, but at the same time, if we can have some upsets, if we can have you know, Benfica, Bruges, one of those guys, Frankfurt maybe, Napoli as well. I'll take them over a lot of the teams that I'm seeing on this list as well. But Chelsea could go far in this Champions League, and that could be kind of our way into it. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to win it. We're way far away, or the quality of this team is way far away from a Champions League winning team or Premier League top 4 team. But yes, granted, we're what 10 points behind, and we need to work our asses off here to try and get something out of this season. I don't think Bowley would mind getting out of the Champions League spots a lot, because, and I say that because he might look at it positively and go, well, we're not in the Champions League next season, but that's a lot less games that we have to play. And the players can just focus on the Premier League and the domestic leagues and try and build their confidence up. And something that worked was when Mourinho or Chelsea couldn't end up in the top 4 under Mourinho. Conte came in next season, and because we didn't have that focus on the Champions League and all these other competitions, we kind of won the Premier League. But then the year after, when we had all of these competitions to play in, a few of the players hadn't been up to their mark, we kind of did struggle in both the Premier League as well as the Champions League, and only managed the FA Cup win. So in hindsight, it could go either way for Chelsea. And considering the amount of money that they're spending, they might not be in Europe by the end of it, which also keeps them away from FFP, I think, from what I've heard. But at the same time, I just feel like this is a lot of BS that's been created just by the media, just to kind of portray or highlight Chelsea's spending so far. And it's just a way for other clubs to also focus on, I guess, focus on other teams that might be that might have interest in their players, like Arsenal and Declan Rice, that like Enzo Fernandez and the other clubs that we've got. So it's like this might just be other clubs doing it as well at the same time, because I just feel like this is not like it's nothing too much, and there's nothing wrong about giving such long contracts. We had Kepa, we had so many players. Liverpool, I remember they signed so many players on 6 years, 7 years contracts as well, and it's absolutely fine when they do it. But as soon as Chelsea do it, it's something to be highlighted about. And I feel like only out of some of our transfers, I can't remember, but I think only a few of them actually are transfers for longer than 5 years, and most of them are actually within the 5 years. I can't remember. I'm trying to find that, but I can't see it on this. But as far as I remember, Fofana is one that is longer than 5. Santos as well, maybe Badiashile as well, that I'm thinking of. But I know Felix isn't, Mudryk isn't, Zakaria isn't, because he's on loan. And as far as I think there's only a few that we're talking about. Cucurella isn't, Sterling isn't, so it's none of these. Fofana might be one of those into it as well. But at the same time, I just feel like it's just something that they're trying to do to try and scare away Chelsea for now. But just how Mourinho likes to say it, it's the world against Chelsea, and that's how it's always been, and that's how we always like it, and that's how it was every time we've won every other single trophy, and that's why we kind of perform a lot better than a lot better under pressure, and when our backs are against the wall. But right now, I think it's going to be a lot of rebuilding for Chelsea. Squad clear outs, Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, Ziyech maybe as well, one of those names. Conor Gallagher might be one of them as well. Kovacic, Kante, Jorginho, they're all going to slowly, one by one, over the next year or so, will be moved out of the team and slowly replaced by a lot of these youngsters that are coming in, and we'll kind of see an actual rebuild happen at Chelsea under Potter. And I will say I have to kind of take my words back on Potter, and I'm slowly starting to change my opinion on Potter because I always thought, yes, Chelsea do have the ability to spend a lot and get talents in, but what's the use of talent when you've got a manager like Potter? And I take my words back. I feel like he might be able to do something. He might be able to do something out of this team, and he's got what it takes to become a good manager. And with the resources provided by Bowley, he could prove that. Well, Siri doesn't agree with me, but I think he should be able to achieve something at Chelsea and uh, become something at Chelsea under this new administration under Bowley as well, which is interesting to see. But there's going to be a lot of news about Nkunku as well. A lot of news about other players, Liao as well, one of our transfers that we were kind of going for as well, which will be over the few weeks, which we'll cover in the next few kind of episodes and try and get on a few more guests back because I've been doing these podcasts on my own at the moment just to try and because it's a lot easier to schedule around my own time and just do it and record and upload it right away. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you leave a like rating. Let us know what your thoughts are on Chelsea at the moment and what do you think is working and what you think isn't working, and um, let us know what you guys think of all of this, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, stay safe. Follow all of our social media pages for the latest news and latest updates on Chelsea FC.